Hi, I'm Shannon with We Are Makers, and I'm here today to introduce you to our newest tool, the Glue Squeeze. This amazing tool helps you to apply adhesive in a smooth, clean, drip-free, easy-to-use way. And I'm excited to walk you through a bunch of tips and tricks to help you to be successful using your Glue Squeeze. The Glue Squeeze comes with this applicator handle and 3 adhesive chambers. So these are called syringes, and they have 3 different types of tip size. So you have a fine, a medium, and a bold tip size. The tool retails for $34.99. Now, if you want more cartridges for your glues, we have that as well. So you can get a refill pack of those 3 syringes and the 3 different tip sizes again, and this retails for $9.99. Okay, let's jump right into how to use this tool, and I'll show you all the tips and tricks that I've learned. First off, let's familiarize you with this tool itself. So this is the handle of the Glue Squeeze, and then it also comes with these 3 syringes. The syringes are comprised of a chamber for the adhesive, a tip in 3 sizes, this little cap, and also this little stopper that's in the bottom of each chamber. The tool itself is very light. It weighs only 0.4 ounce, and even with a filled container attached to it, it only weighed 0.6 ounce. Also, it measures with the container attached 8.5 inches from front to back. That is about the same width and weight as a hot glue gun. I measured and weighed my hot glue gun as well, and my hot glue gun was 8 inches. This is 8.5, and the weight of my hot glue gun was 0.8, and this is 0.6 when filled. So very similar in size and weight to a hot glue gun. On the handle of the tool itself, you'll notice that we've now included a QR code. This is silk screened directly on the tool on both sides. When you scan this on your phone, it will take you to a landing page where you can find all things Glue Squeeze. So the instructions will be there, tips and tricks, this video, project videos, everything you need related to the Glue Squeeze will be found right in one central location when you scan that QR code. We're really excited about this new feature, and this will be on all of our We Are Makers tools moving forward. There are only a few types of glue that we don't recommend using with the Glue Squeeze, and those are super fast, quick drying glues such as super glues or 2-part epoxies. Anything that will solidify and harden in the chamber because it's curing and it's achieving that quick, super strong bond like those 2 types of glue, we don't recommend. Otherwise, you can use any water-based or silicone-based glue in this tool. Now, there are a few factors that may determine which size tip you choose. If you're working on something very fine detailed precision work, then I would suggest using this precision tip. Also, if you're using a glue that is very, very thin, it may easily flow out of these larger tips and drip out of the end, where in this one, it will hold it quite nicely and keep it contained within the chamber. If you're doing multi-purpose, everyday type of adhesion, then this medium tip is a great choice. This is kind of your go-to in between. It lays down more glue than the precision, but it's still quite fine. And then the final one is this large tip, and that one I would recommend using with heavier bodied glues. So anything that's super thick or heavy duty. Also, I've used texture pastes and gessos and things like that in this as well, and it works great. So any thick adhesive, or if you're doing a project where you want to lay down more glue, but you still want the control and the precision of the Glue Squeeze, then this would be the tip for you because a lot more comes out of this bold tip. Let's start by filling this medium tip. I'm going to recap. And then the first thing that we need to do to fill this syringe is to remove this little stopper here. And I'm going to use the handle to do that. There's threads here and coordinating threads here in the bottom of this little stopper. And I'm just going to twist onto those threads on that rod so it gets a hold of it, and then just gently remove that stopper from the tube itself. Then you can just leave that there and we'll go ahead and fill this up. I'm using just my Tonic Craft Tacky PVA glue. This is a medium weight glue. I use it a lot. It dries pretty quickly. I like to use it on a lot of my projects, so I'm just going to go ahead and fill this quite full. Now, if you were doing a small project with a very specific type of glue and you only wanted a little bit in there, you can fill this as small or as tall as you want. I love that about these. But since I use this all the time, I'm going to just fill this up. And I'm just pouring it from its original bottle into the chamber portion of this syringe. When you're filling your chamber, you want to make sure that you leave at least an inch of space here at the top. We need room to put this stopper back inside of our syringe. And if we fill it all the way to the top, we don't have room to do that. So just make sure you leave space there so that you can put this back in. And we're ready to do that now. And I'm just putting it back in the same way I took it off, just gently wiggling that into place. And you can see that it's already into place. Now the next thing to do is to lock this into the handle. Because if I just squeeze this right now, it's just going to move the rod and the syringe forward. We need to make sure that it's going to be locked into place. So we'll just pull down on this little tab here at the back and pull this into place. And you want it to align so that it's going in between these two raised parts right here. It takes two hands because you have to depress this and pull this at the same time. Then once it's flush with the tool, you'll go ahead and turn it so that those two edges are locked underneath that. Now when I push the handle, it's not just advancing forward like it was before. Now it's locked into the handle itself. So you just remove the cap, and on these syringes, there's a little knob right here, and that is for placing your lid. This is for keeping your cap out of your way. I love that it is attached to my syringe with this little tether, so I don't lose it, but also don't want that kind of getting in the way of my adhesive. So this keeps that out of your way. Let's try out this medium tip. So I've advanced it forward, and sometimes I like to just make sure the glue is flowing. And so I'll put a little bit on my finger or on a scrap piece of paper, and then just go ahead and lay down the glue. So it's very easy. I'm just squeezing the handle and moving it as I go. Depending on the thickness of your glue, you may need to squeeze a little harder, or you may not need to squeeze very hard at all. With this craft glue, I barely have to squeeze it, and it comes out just beautifully. I can do little precise dots, squiggles. I could even write. If you feel like you need extra support, if you feel this is long in your hand, you can just hold that with your other hand or rest the tip of the nozzle against your project itself. And that will help you to kind of steady it so you're not shaking and moving all over the place. I'll hold it for one. I also like to kind of turn mine a little bit sideways. I don't know if you're seeing that, but for me, if I turn it sideways, I feel like with my hand in this position, I am getting better control of holding it. So I can support it like this. But you can see how you can kind of support it in multiple ways with this hand. And apply the glue in whatever way you like. It's flat on the bottom. While I'm working, I could stand it up just like that on my desk, and you'll see it's not dripping from that tip. If you do have some drips right here, and you find that your glue squeeze is leaking here at the tip, all you need to do is release the pressure on the glue in here by releasing this a little bit. And so all I do is just push down on that once. I find that that is just enough to pull that back just ever so slightly, that it releases the pressure on the glue and it stops coming free flowing out the tip. That may happen also if you have a very thin glue with a larger tip. It may just want to flow out. And if you release that tab like that, or even pull back on the rod just a little bit, then it will release that pressure from keeping that glue moving. If you're working on a project and you decide you want a different tip, you don't need to fill a whole new cartridge. You can just switch out the tip. I'm just going to do it even right on the tool here. You can see you turn these counterclockwise and the tip will come off of that chamber itself. And let's say I wanted a finer point. I was working on something and I realized I wanted a finer tip. So I would just pull in my fine tip cartridge. Even if it has glue in it, you can take this off. And then put that one on the end of my filled chamber. Let me show you just how much glue comes out with this fine tip. We'll go this way. This is a heavier bodied glue, so it does take a little bit more pressure than a super fine glue would take. But you can see I can still control. I'm barely having to push. Now you can see here it's wanting to flow out. All I have to do is depress that once and maybe pull back a little bit on that rod. and you'll see that now it is no longer dispensing that glue just from the pressure. It's also easy just to switch this back. Take this tip back off and put the other one right back on. And then be sure to cap your glue when you are done working with it. Let me show you this tool in use. So here's a little envelope that I punched out with my envelope punch board. Just going to remove the cap, press it down, and then just apply the glue. Once it's dry, then you can see my little envelope is all ready. Let's remove this cartridge, and we're just going to do the reverse of what we did to put it on there. We'll just twist this so the little end of the chamber is free. Then we'll depress the button, and this time we're going to push forward on this rod. And once it's free and clear of this, then you can twist it to remove it. Now that I've removed this, I don't like to forget which adhesive I have in my chambers. And so I just printed up the name of the glue that I had put into the chamber. You could use a label maker if you have one as well. And then I just put a little bit of gift wrap tape over it, and I'm just going to stick it to the side of my chamber. That way I can always remember that that glue is in this chamber. You can see I've done that here with my Nouveau adhesive, which I have in my fine point. And that way, when I'm storing them, I don't forget which adhesive is in which syringe. And these are so easy to store. You can just stand them up, put them on your shelf. You can throw them in a drawer. They can lay on their sides. They can stand on end, whatever you like. And the glue just stays perfectly nice in there. It doesn't leak out and it doesn't dry out because it's all free of air inside of here. All right, let's actually use this smaller tip. Just going to put it onto my glue squeeze the same way that I did before. And this is a heavier body adhesive, but I like having it in this precision tip. Push down, pull back, and lock into place. Take off my cap. Let's see if I can do a little writing with this one. Because I always release mine a little bit to take that pressure off before I put my cap on, I just advance it to make sure the glue is coming out. And then let's see if I can write a little something with this one. So there's my name. You can get pretty precise with it. Get lots of thin lines. And then because this is a heavier body glue, I'm going to make sure it's not leaking. It actually isn't. And I'm just going to recap it. That's another way you can prevent it from dripping. And set it aside. Let's put a little bit of glitter on this just to make it pretty. And there's my handwritten custom glittering. So that is such a fun way to use that fine tip. Also like to do it with anything that's really precise or really tiny pieces. Before I move on, I actually wanted to show you one little tip and trick that I've found super helpful. Because I have this heavier body adhesive in this small tip, sometimes you'll see that the adhesive is starting to run down into or out of, if I store it this way, it has run out of this little seal here. And I found that there's a trick to giving that a little bit better of a seal. And I wanted to show you that in case that happens for you. It doesn't happen very often, honestly, but it can also happen if you have a very thin glue that's just escaping down behind that seal. So I'm going to put this on just like I was going to be filling this. And I'm going to carefully, because I have adhesive in here, pull out my stopper. Then I'm just going to lean this up because it has glue in it and I don't want it to spill out while I'm working on this. Now I'm going to clean this end of this stopper. I'm just using a baby wipe, but you could also clean it with a paper towel or run it under some warm water. So my trick is to give this a little extra seal. So all I've done is grab one of these little gloves, right, that we have laying around, little neoprene glove. And I'm just going to snip off the very tip of a finger of this glove. And then I'm going to wrap that little bit of finger up tip around this stopper. And you want it to cover the entire thing. So just pull it down over that stopper. And what this is going to do, just that added little grip of that glove is going to seal up our container. Another thing I like to do, see how my glue has run down just a little bit? I'll take that same baby wipe and just put it around my finger and just clean that and make sure it's really clean. Sometimes if glue gets trapped in between there, it will create a little escape route for more adhesive to follow it. So I just make sure it's really clean in there. And then go ahead and put that back in. So you can feel the resistance even when I'm pushing it in. It still slides in easily, but you can feel that resistance. And then that little trick will prevent the glue from actually dripping out. It's okay if it gets here in between the two ridges of these little stoppers. They have a ridge at the top and a ridge at the bottom and kind of this space between. If that gets glue in it, I don't worry about it too much. It's just if it's flowing down out the end of my cartridge because I have a very thin glue or a very heavy glue in a precision tip, then that is when I do this little glove trick to just add a little bit of extra grip in there for that little seal. Let's take this off now and we'll fill a large tip so you can see the difference. Here's my large tip and I'm going to fill it just the same way. I'm going to actually use a texture glaze. So I have this glaze here. Love using this in stencils and different types of mixed media. And I'm just going to use my palette knife to put some of this into the chamber. So you can tell that's really heavy bodied. Like I can turn it upside down and it just stays on my spatula. So I'm just going to fill this chamber by pressing that in there. And I'm just going to use that spatula to kind of help it down in there. And then tap it. Gravity will help it to fall to the bottom of the chamber. You can do that with any adhesive as you're filling the chamber. If you're finding it sitting at the top, then just tap it a little bit on that cap and it will flow down to the bottom. Now I'm just going to do that trick where I clean up where my stopper is going to first go in. Texture pastes are always a little bit messy. They're sticky and thick, but I love that you can use them in the glue squeeze. Now we're ready to just insert this just like we did the other things. So I can just push it in. Sometimes I like to take the cap off so that the air can escape. Then we'll depress the button again, pull the rod back, twist it to lock, and advance that until we have most of the air out. All right, now we're ready to try this one out. I'm going to put my cap up on the little knob. Let's try this thicker adhesive now and see how it flows out. So there's that bold line. One of the uses that I thought of with this is if I had a stencil like this one, where I only wanted to put the stencil paste very specifically on a certain part of the stencil, I could do that very easily with that applicator tip. Then I'm not wasting any texture paste, I'm just getting it mostly where I want it to land. So you can see that there. It works so well. Such a pretty, easy line. And then another tip I have for you is before I cap, I frequently just wipe off the tip and then put my cap on. And now because there's no air in there, it's going to stay nice and creamy and saved in my glue squeeze chamber. To remove it, I just twist, push that forward a little bit, and then untwist the chamber from the tool. Now I just need to make a label for that one so I remember what it is. We've done a little bit of troubleshooting on preventing leaks. I also wanted to give you some tips on how to clean out a nozzle in case your nozzle is getting clogged. So my first tip would be before you cap your glue, just use a baby wipe or a wet paper towel or even just a tissue or a dry paper towel and just clean off that tip a little bit. Once the cap is on, that should do everything you need to keep your nozzle clean. If that's not working and you just for some reason have hardened glue in there, sometimes I forget to cap mine right away. I just leave it standing on my desk. And then in that case, I would take a long pin and just push it into the nozzle. So if you've ever used fine tip glue bottles before, this will be familiar to you. You can clean it out just the same way. And then if that isn't working, then I would just remove the tip like we did before by twisting it. If it's on really tight, you can use a gentle squeeze of a plier to help remove that. Then I would take this tip over to my sink and use a little bit of warm soapy water. You could either drop this into a little cup and let it soak for a little bit, or you could just, with warm water, use the pin and go in and out, right, to clean the nozzle, making sure it's all clear. You can go in from both sides and make sure that is fully cleared. If your glue is non-toxic, you could put your mouth here while there's water in it and just blow. I've also done that when it's on an empty chamber. So if this was empty and I was just cleaning out my entire tube to get it ready for the next adhesive that I was putting in there, then I would just blow from this end and just blow water through that tip with just my mouth, just my breath. But I'd only do that if your glue is non-toxic. Make sure it's safe to do that. Also, you can clean your entire tube, just like I just mentioned, and I'll show you how to do that now over at my sink. Clean the chamber using warm water or warm soapy water. You can use small bottle brushes to get into the crevices if you have some that are small enough. Remove the tip if you need to get all that adhesive out of every little nook and cranny. Run water through it until it's clean. And just to make sure that you get every little bit, I suggest rolling up a piece of paper towel, wetting one end, and twisting it in the chamber. That gets all that adhesive down at the tip out. And then you can repeat that process by using a dry paper towel to dry the chamber. I dry all the parts of my syringe, put it back together, and it's ready to go. That cleaning will work for all water-based glues. If you have a non-water-based glue, like a silicone-based glue or a polyurethane-based or a solvent-based glue, you can still use them in these chambers. But what we recommend is actually not cleaning them. We recommend choosing a new chamber, designating it for that glue, labeling it, and then you can continue to use it and refill and refill and refill as you use that solvent-based or polyurethane or silicone glue, and not worry about having to clean them. But you can clean the tip in the same way that we showed before for those other types of glue. But for water-based glues, which are most adhesives in crafting, you can just clean the entire chamber like we just did. It's empty, clean, dry, ready to fill for your next project. If you have adhesive in a chamber and you want to switch it out to a different one, I'll show you my favorite way. So while I have this on here, ready to go on my tool handle, I'll just get my bottle that I want my adhesive to go back into and simply just squeeze it back into the bottle. It's so easy to depress the handle. You can see it's just cleanly moving all of that adhesive back into its original bottle. I don't do this very often because I just like to store my glue in these chambers. But if for some reason you wanted to switch out the glue, this is the way that I would recommend doing it. And I get it all the way to the bottom. You can see that there's hardly any glue left in this chamber. And then I will just go ahead and clean that chamber. I hope that this video has helped you to feel confident using your own glue squeeze. If you have any other questions that we didn't cover in this video, please comment below and I will make sure to watch for them and answer them as quickly as I can. We hope you stay tuned for some project inspiration videos that will be coming soon of ways you can use your glue squeeze.